Hello, I'm Paul Fain. I'll be your moderator for this discussion on employers as the colleges of the future. I'm a journalist covering connections between education and work with a newsletter and a new publication called WorkShift. I'm very excited about our two expert speakers, both of whom have timely and relevant news to discuss here in our brief time together. First up is Ardeen Williams, Vice President of Workforce Development for Amazon. Ardeen has a lengthy leadership track record across the tech industry with roles in product development and marketing, corporate business development, M&A, and HR. Hello, Ardeen.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us. And then Lydia Logan, Vice President of Education and Workforce for IBM, who has decades of expertise in philanthropy, education, public policy, and economic development. Hello, Lydia.
Hello.
So both Lydia and Ardeen have a lot to share, so I'm just going to get right into it. You'll have to look up their bios on your own, but let's start with Lydia. So IBM made a very big announcement earlier this month with a new free career readiness program, including plans to train 30 million people globally. I had to read that number twice. What led IBM to make this level of commitment, and can you give us a sense of how you plan to reach that scale?
Absolutely. So first, I'd like to say thank you for having me. It's wonderful to be here. I years ago worked at the U.S. Chamber, and I'm a big fan of the programs that are run and the employer voice that they represent. IBM is building on a long tradition that it's had in providing skills, training, and cutting edge access to education efforts. Since the 40s, we worked with Columbia University to create computer science as a new academic field of study. In 2011, we launched P-TECH, and so here we are now talking about our skills announcement to help 30 million by 2030. And we'll do that with partnerships. This is a collaborative effort across IBM. There are many departments involved in making this happen. And our CSR team is leading the way with some of the programs that we run: STEM for Girls, P-TECH, and Skills Build. Skills Build is really sort of our primary program in this area, where we are working with partners and offering industry-aligned content, badges, partnerships with high schools on the student side and teachers, and then for community colleges, workforce boards, and other nonprofits for adult job seekers, making sure that we're responsible stewards of the technology. We provide the access to people who are most in need, particularly after the pandemic. We saw so many people needing to upskill, reskill, shift jobs, and this is our way of making sure that we're providing what's needed.
Thanks, Lydia. So Ardeen, last month, Amazon announced it would pay full college tuition for its frontline US employees, and that's part of the company's long-running career choice skills training program. What's been the reception to that initiative, and how does this complement Amazon's other upskilling efforts?
Well, thanks for having me, and it's great to be here with Lydia with her tremendous experience. So Amazon is the second largest employer in the US, and we have a role to play in creating good jobs. And for us, good jobs comprise three things: a leading wage, so a starting wage of $15 an hour, an average wage of $17 across the US, access to egalitarian benefits for our full-time workers from day one, so medical, mental health, dental, vision, a retirement plan with employer matching, and up to 20 weeks of paid family leave. And then the third piece, which is critical, is the opportunity to add skills to experience so that people can grow a career, whether that's with Amazon, which we hope it is, or elsewhere. And so on the 9th of September, as you said, we announced that we were increasing our investment to $1.2 billion to reach 300,000 of our employees. And what we did with Career Choice, which, just as a quick refresher, folks, is designed to provide the training and skills that our employees need to access in-demand jobs in the local community that pay more than we do and put them on a career path. And what we did was bookended that program. So we added at what I'd call the front end, foundational skills like completing your high school diploma, a GED, and certification in English as a second language, because in many cases, Amazon can be a first stop for people on their job path. The second thing we did was on the other side of the traditional program, which is licensing, credentials, certificates up to a 2-year degree program, was to add that 4-year degree. So what we have now is really a continuum for wherever that employee might be in their educational arc. And it's one of 9 programs, so it fits very nicely. And those 9 programs range from Machine Learning University, which provides graduate level artificial intelligence and machine learning coursework that's created and taught by Amazon engineers for our software development folks to keep them current, to our 9 registered DOL apprenticeship programs in cloud computing and mechatronics. So really a pretty broad range, and things like quick start programs for IT engineers and data center technicians and user experience designers. And the reception internally has been, I'm really proud to say, phenomenal. People wanted choice and career choice, and adding these 2 pieces really helps with that continuum. And we're excited to kick it off in January, when people will be able to access and enroll in those 4-year degree programs.
Well, I appreciate you both so succinctly describing enormously complex and ambitious programs. So the title of this program is about blurring lines between colleges and employers. This is a fast-moving space. There's a lot happening. I gather some folks get nervous when they hear about these boundaries getting a little blurry, apprehensive about it. How do you respond to folks who might not be ready for the shift that your corporations are doing here? And let's stick with Ardeen first. I want you both to get a chance at this one, though. So
there is a lot of blur. I mean, the line between tech and non-tech jobs is blurring. So I think that this is, as change happens, it's happening even faster. What I like to say is upskilling is a team sport. I mean, the work that Lydia and IBM do in the community is complementary to work that we do. And it really isn't college or upskilling. I think that question is an oversimplification. As a nation, we simply aren't producing enough STEM graduates to meet the demand, not only for those STEM specific roles, but also for jobs that what we call sit with, right, that are on the edge, where you're requiring more and more technical fluency in HR, law, finance, for example. And so the more companies and schools that work collaboratively to grow that tech pipeline and to improve equity of opportunity and that digital literacy, the better off we all are. And we know that at Amazon, it's not one size fits all. It's always been a hybrid approach. And so we're offering a variety of opportunities to meet employees where they are. And so my belief is that higher education isn't going to go away. I think what we saw, as Lydia said, during the pandemic, entire industries were turned on their head overnight, and people had an opportunity, a need to go reskill, and B, an opportunity to really sit back and think about how they wanted to spend their days. And to focus on something that not only puts food on the table and a roof over their heads, but brings them some satisfaction. And I think that along with the rapid shift to digitization, so the ability to access courses remotely, has really accelerated the change. And I think that there are lots of great educational institutions blazing trails in this area. And so my personal belief, and again, I'm an eternal optimist, is that collaboration between institutions of higher education and businesses large and small is what's going to enable us to scale the workforce that we need for the jobs of today and the jobs of tomorrow.
How about you, Lydia? What would you add now that IBM is ramping up its work in this space?
Well, I'm going to echo what Ardeen said. This is about an ecosystem of learning. It's not an either or. People don't learn either at a university or in some other setting. They're doing both these days. And when we talk about people acquiring the skills they need for the jobs of today and tomorrow, the STEM jobs that we often call new collar jobs at IBM, it's a lifelong learning play. It is not just train once and be finished, right? We know that about what we all do. And so that requires you to have also flexible options. So you may have time to work on a degree program with a university, but you may need to do a certificate program or some smaller kinds of skilling options that allow you to gain the skills you need to get the next job or to stay current in the job you have. And so I think what we're looking at is, again, not only entry-level jobs, but training, right, skilling and upskilling for people wherever they are. We hope many of them choose to come and work at IBM, but there are thousands and thousands of jobs, particularly in the tech sector, going unfilled because people don't have the skills they need. Working together, we can provide those opportunities to people. We also can provide opportunities to people who have traditionally been left out of the tech sector: women, underrepresented minorities, service people who are returning from military service, who have similar jobs in the military and need those civilian certifications. So there are lots of groups of people who can benefit from this, and our economy as a whole, both in the US and globally. I think, we hope people will come and work for us, but if they work for another company in the sector that's really lifting all boats, they can start at a smaller, medium-sized company, get some more experience under their belt, and then come work for an IBM or an Amazon when they're later on in their career. So I think this, right, it's not a binary option. It's not a this or that, it is a both and.
Well, I want to turn to Ardeen on that, because I think for a lot of folks, it's hard to grasp that Amazon, like IBM, is doing a lot of this work for folks that may or probably will look for jobs elsewhere. Can you talk a little bit about why you've moved in that direction?
So I think Lydia did a great job talking about the ecosystem. It really isn't for. We know that people will come to Amazon at some point in their career, and we hope that they stay with us, but it may just be a stepping stone to something else. And we're honest, we may not have the career option that they're interested in. There aren't opportunities for registered nurses at Amazon, for example. And so it's important for us to help people on that career progression path. And why is that? Because it's the new minimum wage. Career progression is what moves people, lifts them up and moves them up the wage scale. And when people move up the wage scale, you raise the tax revenue in communities and schools improve. You create a pipeline for employers that are in the community and other employers join. So there's this great flywheel effect that happens when we all work collectively to upskill that talent together. And so it isn't inside or outside, it's both.
So obviously, not everybody watching this event works at a company with the scope of your two organizations. What sort of advice would you offer to folks from smaller businesses? And does the urgency behind these new initiatives that you've started apply to their work as well? And let's start with Lydia.
I think absolutely it applies to their work. I think the great thing is programs like the one that we've launched are ways for them to offer, free training to their clients or their customers or their employees. I think one of the things that we know is there are great free options. It's hard to find them all in one place. And it's hard to find them with a trusted brand, knowing that that's a badge or a certificate or a skilled course that they can take and use when they're seeking the next job. And I think that's where we can work together as employers, is honoring these high quality training options so that when people are coming to our companies and seeking the next job, we're recognizing that it isn't just degrees that show what people know and are able to do, that it is alternative routes and skilling and skills training that really is how people are preparing for jobs today. And making sure that we have policies in place that don't keep people out of the market because of policies around how jobs are sorted and how candidates are selected.
Well, we've barely scratched the surface with both of these programs. I would encourage everyone to go to the websites to look at all the various pieces of it. We'll obviously be watching it closely in the coming months and years. But I'm afraid now I'm going to have to turn it back to our host with the U.S. Chamber Foundation. But thanks to you both for joining us today.
Thank you.